Welcome to Classic Storytime Hub, where timeless tales are reborn with fresh suspense. Tonight, we bring you The Terror of Blue John Gap by Arthur Conan Doyle, reimagined and rewritten in English to captivate modern audiences. A chilling descent into darkness awaits. The following account was discovered among the papers of Dr. James Hardcastle, who succumbed to consumption on February 4, 1908, at his residence in South Kensington. Those who knew him best described him as a man of science, calm, rational, and utterly lacking in fanciful imagination. For that reason, the strange events recorded here cannot be dismissed as mere invention. The document was sealed inside an envelope marked, "A brief record of certain occurrences near Miss Allerton's farm, northwest Derbyshire, spring of last year." On the reverse, written faintly in pencil, were these words: "No trace of this Seton has ever been found, yet Hardcastle's visit to Allerton's farm and the unsettling disturbances reported there are matters of fact." What follows is his diary, unaltered, save for a few erased lines. April 17th. Already the mountain air has begun to restore me. The Allerton farm sits more than 1,400 feet above sea level, and the climate is sharp, invigorating. Aside from my morning cough, I feel little discomfort. With fresh milk and mutton from their own fields, I may yet regain strength. Saunderson will be pleased. The two Miss Allertons are quaint, kind-hearted souls, elderly spinsters who pour all the affection denied to husbands or children into the care of a weary stranger. Society may call them superfluous women, but I know better. They are the hidden guardians of our community. Without such gentle presences, what would become of us men? In their innocence, they soon revealed why Saunderson had sent me here. The professor himself once labored in these very fields, a boy chasing crows from the crops. Strange to think that such humble beginnings could lead him to the heights of science, and now, perhaps, to the mystery that waits in the shadows of Blue John Gap. It is a place of profound solitude, where silence clings to the valley like a shroud. The Allerton farm lies at the bottom of a jagged hollow, hemmed in by limestone hills, so fragile you could crumble them with your bare hands. The land itself feels hollow, as though a single blow from some colossal hammer might cause the ground to thunder, or collapse entirely, revealing a hidden ocean beneath. Indeed, there must be such a sea, for every stream vanishes into the mountains, swallowed by the earth and never seen again. Everywhere, the rocks gape open, leading into caverns that twist downward into the bowels of the world. With my small bicycle lamp, I wander into these eerie chambers, marveling at the silver gleam and black shadows cast upon the stalactites that hang like frozen curtains from the vaulted ceilings. Switch off the light, and the darkness is absolute, an abyss without end. Switch it on again, and the cave transforms into a vision worthy of the Arabian Nights. Yet among these countless fissures, one entrance commands a deeper fascination. Unlike the others, it is not nature's work, but man's. Until I arrived here, I had never heard of Blue John, a rare mineral of deep violet hue, found in only a handful of places across the world. So precious is it that even a simple vase carved from Blue John would fetch a fortune. Long ago, the Romans, guided by their uncanny instinct, discovered its presence in this valley. They carved a horizontal shaft into the mountainside, its mouth now hidden beneath tangled bushes. This passage, known as Blue John Gap, is a clean arch of stone that intersects the ancient water-worn caves. To step inside is to risk being lost forever. Without candles enough to light your way, daylight may never be found again. I have not yet ventured far within,
But today I stood at the threshold, staring into the black recesses beyond. And there, in that moment, I swore, when my strength returns, I will dedicate a holiday to exploring those shadowed depths, to discover how far the Romans pressed into the heart of the Derbyshire hills, and what secrets they left behind. How curious the superstitions of these country folk! I had expected better of young Armitage, a man of education, character, and strength, admirable in his station. Yet as I stood at the mouth of Blue John Gap, he crossed the field toward me, his face grave. "Well, doctor," he said, "you're not afraid, then?" "Afraid?" I replied. "Afraid of what?" He lifted his thumb toward the cavern's black throat. "It, the terror that dwells in the Blue John Cave."
How easily legends take root in lonely valleys. I pressed him for reasons behind this belief. He spoke of sheep vanishing from the fields, carried away whole. I suggested they had simply wandered into the mountains, but he dismissed the idea. He told of blood pooled in the grass, tufts of wool scattered, signs, he claimed, of something monstrous. I countered with natural explanations. The disappearances always occurred on moonless nights, I argued, the very nights a common thief would choose. Even the broken wall and scattered stones could be the work of human hands. But Armitage's final claim was delivered with conviction. He had heard the creature. Anyone, he insisted, who lingered at the gap long enough would hear it, a roar, vast and distant, echoing from the depths. I smiled, knowing well the strange reverberations of underground rivers coursing through limestone caverns. My skepticism offended him, and he left abruptly. Yet here lies the unsettling truth. I remained at the cave's mouth, turning over his words, dismissing them one by one, when suddenly, from the tunnel beside me, there rose a sound unlike any I had ever heard. Immense, resonant, and unnatural. How can I describe it? At first, the sound seemed impossibly distant, echoing from the very bowels of the earth. Yet, despite that sense of remoteness, it struck my ears with startling force. It was no boom of falling water, nor the crash of tumbling stone. Instead, it was a high, trembling whine, vibrating through the cavern like the eerie whinnying of some unseen beast. For a fleeting moment, I found myself giving weight to Armitage's warnings. I lingered at the mouth of Blue John Gap for half an hour, waiting for the sound to return. Nothing. At last I turned back toward the farmhouse, unsettled and strangely haunted. The noise still echoes in my memory as I write, and I cannot deny it was unlike anything I have ever heard. When my strength returns, I shall explore that cavern in earnest. April 20th. Over the past 3 days, I have ventured repeatedly to the gap, even daring to step inside. Yet my bicycle lamp is too feeble. Its glow fades quickly, and I dare not trust it deep within the labyrinth. I must prepare more carefully. No sound has greeted me since that first night, and I could almost believe I imagined it, some hallucination born of Armitage's tales. Still, the bushes at the entrance bear marks, as though something heavy has forced its way through. My curiosity grows sharper. I have told nothing to the Miss Allertons, for they are already too steeped in superstition. Instead, I have purchased candles and resolved to investigate alone. This morning, among the scattered tufts of wool near the cavern mouth, I found one stained with blood. Reason insists that wandering sheep injure themselves easily among the rocks, yet that
crimson smear sent a chill through me, and for a moment I recoiled from the Roman arch as though it concealed some dreadful secret. A foul breath seemed to seep from the darkness, whispering of things unseen. Could it be possible that something nameless, something monstrous, waits in those depths? In the days of my strength, I would have laughed at such fancies. But illness makes a man more fragile, more prone to shadows. And now, I cannot shake the feeling that the terror of Blue John Gap is real. For a brief moment, my resolve faltered. I was ready to abandon the mystery of the old mine forever, to leave its secret buried in darkness. But tonight, my curiosity has rekindled, and my nerves feel steadier. Tomorrow, I shall press deeper into this enigma. April 22nd. Let me record as faithfully as I can the extraordinary events of yesterday. I set out in the afternoon and made my way to Blue John Gap. As I stood before its shadowed mouth, unease returned, and I wished for a companion to share the descent. Yet determination won out. I lit my candle, pushed through the briars, and stepped into the rocky shaft. The tunnel sloped sharply downward for nearly 50 feet, its floor strewn with broken stone. Beyond stretched a long, straight corridor carved into solid rock. Though no geologist, I could see that the walls were harder than limestone. At certain points, the tool marks of ancient miners remained sharp and fresh, as though cut only yesterday. Down this strange passage I stumbled, my weak flame casting a narrow circle of light, deepening the menace of the shadows beyond. At last, the Roman tunnel opened into a vast cavern, a hall of stone hung with white stalactites like frozen spears. From this chamber, I glimpsed several passages winding away into the earth, carved by subterranean streams. I hesitated, torn between retreat and the lure of discovery. Then my eyes fell upon the ground before me. Most of the cavern floor was hard with lime deposits and scattered boulders, but here, beneath a steady drip from the roof, lay a patch of soft mud, and in its center, a mark.
It was no ordinary footprint, a deep, broad, irregular blotch, as though some massive weight had pressed into the earth. Yet no stone lay nearby to explain it. Too vast for any animal, too singular for any stride. One mark only, standing alone in the mud, silent and inexplicable. I stared at it, my candle trembling in my hand, and for the first time I felt the chill certainty that something unknown, something immense, had passed this way. As I lifted myself from examining that strange imprint and turned toward the shadows hemming me in, a sudden chill gripped my heart. For an instant, the candle shook in my hand, its flame quivering as though it, too, feared the dark. I forced myself to recover. Surely it was absurd to imagine that such a vast, shapeless mark could belong to any living creature. Not even an elephant could have left it. Determined not to surrender to vague terrors, I fixed my eyes on a peculiar rock formation near the tunnel entrance, a landmark to guide me back should I lose my way. With fresh resolve, I checked my spare candles and matches, then pressed onward across the cavern's uneven floor. And then came disaster. A stream 20 feet wide cut across my path. I followed its edge, searching for a place to cross, until I found a flat boulder near the center. It looked safe enough to stride upon, but as I landed, the stone tilted under the force of the rushing water, and in an instant I was hurled into the icy current. My candle sputtered out, and I was left floundering in absolute darkness. I staggered upright, soaked, but more amused than alarmed at first. My candle was gone, swept away, but I had 2 more in my pocket. I pulled one out,
ready to strike a match. Only then did the true horror dawn on me. The matchbox had been drenched in the fall. The sticks were useless. A cold hand seemed to close around my chest. The darkness was suffocating, so complete it felt solid, pressing against my face when I raised my hand. I stood frozen, forcing myself to remain calm, trying desperately to reconstruct the cavern's layout in my mind. But memory failed me. The blackness was absolute, and I was utterly alone. The landmarks I had memorized were high upon the cavern walls, useless to my searching hands. Still, I clung to the faint hope that by groping along the sides, I might stumble upon the Roman tunnel's entrance. Slowly, painfully, I moved forward, striking against jagged stone at every step. But soon the truth became undeniable. In that velvet black darkness, all bearings vanished in an instant. Within a dozen paces, I was utterly lost. The stream's rippling was the only sound, the only guide. Yet the moment I strayed from its bank, confusion swallowed me whole. To find my way back through this limestone labyrinth without light was impossible. I sank onto a boulder, reflecting grimly on my plight. No one knew I had ventured into Blue John Mine. No search party would come. My survival depended entirely on myself. One fragile hope remained: the matches. When I fell into the stream, only half my body had been submerged. My left shoulder was dry. I pressed the soaked box beneath my armpit, praying that body heat might coax them back to life. Hours would pass before I could expect a flame. Until then, I had no choice but to wait. By fortune, I had slipped a few biscuits into my pocket before leaving the farmhouse. I ate them hungrily, washing them down with a draught from the very stream that had caused my misfortune. Then, fumbling among the rocks, I found a place to rest my back. Damp, cold, and miserable, I tried to console myself with the thought that doctors prescribed fresh air and exposure for my illness. Gradually, lulled by the monotonous gurgle of the water and the suffocating silence of the dark, I drifted into a restless, uneasy sleep, alone in the bowels of the earth, with only the shadows for company. How long I slept, I cannot say. An hour, perhaps several. But suddenly I awoke, every nerve alive, every sense sharpened. I had heard something, not the familiar gurgle of the stream, but another sound, faint yet undeniable, still echoing in my ear. Could it be a search party? No, there were no voices, no calls. This was something else. I held my breath. There it was again. And again. Now it grew steady, continuous. A tread. Yes, unmistakably the tread of some living creature. But what a tread it was! Heavy, deliberate, as though enormous weight pressed down upon soft, sponge-like feet. The sound was muffled, yet vast, filling the cavern. And it was coming closer. A chill swept over me, my skin clammy, my hair bristling. Whatever it was, it moved swiftly, confidently, as though it could see in the dark. I crouched low against the rock, willing myself to vanish into its shadow. The steps drew nearer, then halted. A loud lapping followed. The creature was drinking from the stream. Silence. Then came the snorts, deep and resonant, vibrating through the cavern, my nostrils filled with a fetid stench, foul and suffocating. Had it scented me? The thought froze my blood. The tread resumed, now on my side of the stream. Stones rattled within yards of where I lay, each step a thunder in the dark. I dared not breathe. At last, the sound receded. A splash marked its return across the river, and then the tread faded into the distance, swallowed by the blackness from which it had come. For a long time I lay motionless, paralyzed by horror. I thought of the strange roar I had once heard, of Armitage's warnings, of the monstrous imprint in the mud, and now this. Proof undeniable, something vast, unearthly, and dreadful prowled within the mountain's hollow. What form it took I could not imagine, save that it was both gigantic and unnervingly light-footed. And there, in the dark, my reason battled my senses. Reason insisting such things could not exist, senses screaming that they did. At last, I was nearly convinced that the whole ordeal had been nothing more than a fevered dream, a hallucination born of my weakened state. But one final discovery shattered that fragile illusion. I drew the matchbox from beneath my arm. To my relief, the sticks felt dry and firm. Striking one against the stone, I watched with joy as it flared to life. I lit my candle, its glow trembling against the cavern walls, and cast a fearful glance into the depths behind me. Then I hurried toward the Roman passage. As I passed the patch of mud where I had seen the single monstrous imprint, I froze. There were now three vast impressions, irregular in shape, pressed deep into the earth, marks of a weight so immense that no natural creature could have left them. Terror surged through me. Shielding the candle with my hand, I fled in blind panic, racing up the rocky archway, clawing through the briars, until at last I collapsed upon the grass beneath the calm, indifferent stars. It was 3 a.m. when I staggered back to the farmhouse, trembling, broken, and utterly undone. I have told no one. What would the lonely women or the simple villagers think of such a tale? No, I must seek someone who can understand. April 25th. 2 days I lay in bed, shaken by the cavern's horrors. Yet another experience has unsettled me almost as deeply. When strength returned, I sought counsel. Professor Saunderson had given me a note of recommendation to a local physician, Dr. Mark Johnson. To him I recounted everything, every sound, every imprint, every terror. He listened gravely, examined me with care, testing my reflexes, studying the dilation of my pupils. When he had finished, he refused to discuss the matter further. "It is beyond me," he said. Then he handed me a card. "Mr. Picton, Castleton." According to Johnson, this was the man best suited to hear my story, the one most capable of offering guidance. And so, my fate, and perhaps the secret of Blue John Gap, now rests with him. I journeyed to the station and on to the small town, 10 miles distant. Mr. Picton's name gleamed on a brass plate fixed to the door of a grand building at the edge of town. I was about to ring when doubt seized me. Crossing to a nearby shop, I asked the man behind the counter what he knew of Picton. "Why," he said, "he's the finest mad doctor in Derbyshire. That building is his asylum." You may imagine how swiftly I turned away, shaking the dust of Castleton from my feet. I cursed the narrow minds of pedants who cannot conceive that creation may hold things beyond their mole-eyed vision. Yet calmer now, I admit I have shown Armitage no more sympathy than Dr. Johnson showed me. April 27th. In my student days, I was known for courage and enterprise. I recall a ghost hunt at Coltbridge, where I alone kept vigil in the haunted house. But now, though I am but 35, my heart quails at the thought of that cavern, and the certainty that something monstrous dwells within. What am I to do? Each hour I wrestle with the question. If I remain silent, the mystery endures. If I speak, I risk either spreading panic across the countryside or being dismissed as insane. Perhaps the wisest course is to wait, to prepare carefully for a deliberate expedition. As a first step, I returned to Castleton and secured what I needed: a powerful acetylene lantern, and a double-barreled sporting rifle. The rifle is hired, but I have purchased a dozen heavy cartridges, rounds fit to bring down a rhinoceros. Now I am armed, ready for my troglodyte adversary. But who or what is he? That question robs me of sleep. I form theories only to discard them. It is unthinkable and yet undeniable. The cry, the footprint, the tread in the cavern, no reasoning can erase them. I recall the old legends of dragons and monsters. Were they not mere fairy tales, but echoes of truth? And am I, of all men, chosen to uncover it?
May 3rd. For several days I have been confined indoors by the fickle moods of an English spring. Yet during that time, events have unfolded whose true, sinister meaning only I can grasp. The nights have been cloudy, moonless, the very conditions under which, I was told, sheep vanish, and vanish they have. 2 from Miss Allerton's flock, 1 from old Pearson's, and another from Mrs. Moulton's. 4 sheep gone in 3 nights, leaving no trace. The countryside hums with talk of gypsies and thieves. But there is something far graver. Young Armitage has disappeared. He left his cottage on Wednesday night and has not been seen since. The villagers whisper of debts and flight, imagining he has taken work elsewhere. But I cannot share their complacency. Is it not more likely that, stirred by the recent attacks, he sought to confront the creature, and was himself carried off into the mountain's depths? What an inconceivable fate for a civilized man of the 20th century! And yet, I fear it is not only possible, but probable. If that is so, how much of the blame lies with me? With the knowledge I possess, is it not my duty to act? This morning, I went to the police station and told my story. The inspector listened gravely, recorded it in his book, and bowed me out. Yet as I left, I heard laughter behind me. No doubt my tale was already being shared as a jest among his family. June 10th. I write now, propped up in bed, 6 weeks after my last entry. I have endured a shock to both mind and body, an ordeal few men have ever faced. But I have achieved my end. The terror of Blue John Gap is no more. The danger has passed, never to return. Broken though I am, I have done this much for the common good. Let me now recount, as clearly as I can, the dreadful events that brought me to this state. May 3rd. The night was dark and heavy with clouds, the perfect hour for the monster to roam. At 11, I left the farmhouse, carrying my lantern and rifle. On my bedroom table, I had placed a note: "If I do not return, search for me at the Gap." I reached the mouth of the Roman shaft and settled among the rocks, extinguishing my lantern, rifle ready in hand. It was a lonely vigil. Across the valley, scattered farmhouse lights flickered faintly, and the distant toll of Chapel-le-Dale's clock drifted to my ears. These reminders of human life only deepened my isolation, making the silence around me more dreadful. Every instinct urged me to flee, to abandon this perilous quest, yet pride held me fast. A man cannot turn back from what he has sworn to face.
Midnight struck, then 1 o'clock, then 2. The darkest hour of night. Clouds smothered the sky, no stars above, only the mournful hoot of an owl and the sigh of the wind. And then I heard it. From deep within the tunnel came muffled steps, soft yet ponderous, each one rattling stones beneath its weight. Nearer they came, closer. The bushes at the entrance crashed aside, and through the blackness I sensed it,
the looming bulk of something vast, shapeless, monstrous. It moved swiftly, silently, a shadow against shadows. My heart froze. Long had I waited, but when it came, I was unprepared. Breathless, paralyzed, I lay still as the immense, dark mass swept past me and vanished into the night. I braced myself for its return. The countryside lay silent, offering no hint of the horror that prowled unseen. I could not guess where it lurked, nor when it might strike again. But I swore never again would my nerve fail, never again would it pass unchallenged. My rifle lay ready across the rock, my teeth clenched in grim resolve. And yet it nearly did. Without warning, the creature drifted across the grass, a vast shadow gliding toward the cave's mouth. Once more, paralysis seized me, freezing my finger on the trigger. But with a desperate surge of will, I broke free. As the beast melted into the brushwood, I fired. In the blaze of the shot, I saw it, just for an instant. A colossal, shaggy mass, its bristling hair a withered gray fading to white below. Its body was supported by short, thick, curving legs, grotesque in their strength. Then it vanished, stones clattering as it plunged into its burrow. Triumph surged through me. My fear was gone. I flung open the shutter of my lantern, its brilliant beam flooding the tunnel, and with rifle in hand, I leapt from my perch, racing after the monster into the Roman shaft. The light revealed its massive form lurching ahead, filling the passage wall to wall. Its fleece hung in coarse, tangled masses, swaying with each stride. It was like some monstrous sheep, yet larger than any elephant, its breadth nearly equal to its height. Even now I marvel that I dared pursue such a horror into the earth's bowels. But when blood is up, when the quarry flees, the ancient hunting spirit awakens and caution is cast aside. I ran at full speed, rifle ready, heart pounding. I had seen its swiftness. Now I was to learn its cunning. I believed it fled in panic, that pursuit alone would bring me victory. Never did it cross my fevered mind that the beast might turn upon me. I have already said that the passage opened into a vast central cavern. Into this chamber I rushed, desperate not to lose the beast's trail. But it had doubled back, and in an instant we were face to face. That vision, seared forever into my memory, was revealed in the stark blaze of my lantern. The creature rose upon its hind legs like a bear, yet no nightmare had ever conjured such a form. Imagine a bear 10 times the size of any known to man, its crooked forelegs armed with ivory claws, its hide rugged and coarse, its gaping mouth lined with monstrous fangs. And yet one detail set it apart from any earthly beast: its eyes. Huge, bulbous, white, and sightless, they glistened in the lantern's glow, filling me with a horror beyond words. For a heartbeat, its massive paws hovered above me. Then it lunged. I fell, my lantern shattered, and darkness swallowed me whole. When I awoke, I was back at the Allertons' farmhouse. 2 days had passed. I had lain insensible in the cave, my ribs broken, my arm fractured, my mind fevered with delirium. A search party had found me, guided by the note I had left. Yet of the creature there was no trace, no blood, no carcass, only the marks in the mud and my shattered body to bear witness. 6 weeks have passed since that dreadful night. Now I sit once more in the sunshine,
gazing across the valley at the hillside of grey shale. There, upon its flank, lies the dark cleft of the Blue John Gap. But it no longer fills me with terror. Never again shall that cursed tunnel release its monstrous secret into the world of men. The learned and the scientific may scoff at my tale. Dr. Johnsons and their kind will dismiss it as fantasy, but the humble folk of the countryside, they never doubted. And perhaps, in their simple faith, they are closer to the truth than all the wisdom of scholars. The day after I regained consciousness, crowds gathered by the hundreds around Blue John Gap. The Castleton Courier reported, "It was useless for our correspondent or for any of the adventurous gentlemen from Matlock, Buxton, and beyond to attempt descent and test Dr. Hardcastle's extraordinary tale. The country folk had taken matters into their own hands. From early morning they laboured to block the tunnel's entrance. Great boulders, rolled by many willing hands, sealed the shaft completely. So ends the episode that has stirred such excitement across the land. Opinion remains divided. Some point to Dr. Hardcastle's failing health, suggesting hallucinations born of disease. Others recall the legend of a creature in the gap and see his injuries as final proof. No definite solution seems possible. It transcends human wit to explain the alleged facts."
Perhaps the courier should have spoken to me before publishing. I have thought long and hard upon the matter, as no one else has reason to do, and I believe I can resolve some of the difficulties, bringing the narrative one step closer to scientific acceptance. My theory may sound wildly improbable, yet no one can say it is impossible, for I know, at the cost of my own body and mind, that what I endured was no dream, no hallucination, but a series of undeniable facts. My conviction, formed even before my dreadful adventure, is that beneath this part of England lies a vast subterranean sea, fed by countless streams that vanish into the limestone. Where water gathers, there must be evaporation, mist, and rain, and with moisture, the possibility of vegetation. And where plants thrive, animal life may follow, seeded long ago when the earth's crust was more open to the air. Thus, over untold ages, this hidden world may have evolved its own flora and fauna, creatures shaped by isolation and darkness. Among them, I believe, was the monster I encountered, perhaps a descendant of the ancient cave bear, grotesquely enlarged and transformed by its strange environment. For eons, the inner and outer worlds remained apart, each growing along its own path. Then, through some rift in the mountain, one beast found its way upward, using the Roman tunnel to reach the surface. Like all subterranean life, it had lost the gift of sight, yet nature had compensated in other ways. It hunted with uncanny precision, striking sheep on the hillsides. Its preference for moonless nights, I believe, was no accident. Light was agony to those pale, sightless eyes. Perhaps it was the blaze of my lantern that saved me when we stood face to face in the cavern. So, I read the riddle. These are the facts as I know them, facts written in my broken body and haunted memory. Believe them or doubt them as you will. Your skepticism cannot erase them, nor alter the fate of one whose task is nearly done. Thus ends the strange and terrible account of Dr. James Hardcastle.
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.